So we are continuing with the description of the form of the Supreme Lord on which a yogi should meditate. So this description is given by Kapila Muni to his mother Devahuti. So in the previous verses we saw the description of the lotus feet of the Lord, the ankles, his knees, his hips, his thighs, his navel, his abdomen region, his chest, and the Kaustuba jewel. Continuing with that, next what should the yogi meditate upon? He should meditate upon four things are mentioned in this verse. The first one, Bahumscha mandaragire parivartanena nirnikta bahuvalayan adhilokapalan. So in these two lines, 2 points are mentioned. The first one is, we can take it in this way, Bahumscha adhilokapalan. The arms, the 4 arms of the Supreme Lord. He has got 4 arms as a super soul, which are the source of all the powers of the demigods, of the different devatas. So this is the first one. The second, Mandaragire parivartanena nirnikta bahuvalayan. Bahuvalayan, the ornaments which the Lord wears on his arms. The arms, wherever all the nice ornaments, golden ornaments he wears, that a yogi should meditate upon. And how are those ornaments? They are dazzling, shining brilliantly because of Mandaragire parivartanena. We'll understand how this Mandaragiri, the churning of the Mandaragiri, because of that the Lord's ornaments are appearing like as if recently burnished or recently polished. So the first, the yogi should meditate on the 4 arms of the Lord and the ornaments which the Lord wears on his arms. The third, Sanchintaye dashashataram asahyatejaha. Dashashatara, dashashata means 10 into 100, 1000 ara spokes. That Sudarshana chakra which has got 1000 spokes. Sanchintaye dashashataram asahyatejaha. That Sudarshana chakra which has got a dazzling luster, shining, that also shining very brilliantly. And then fourth one, Shankam cha tatkara saroruha rajahamsam. Then the Shankha or the conch which the Lord holds, how is it appearing? The Sudarshana chakra, it is dazzling, asahya tejaha, brilliantly shining. But the conch shell, it is appearing to be like a rajahamsaha. The Lord's hands are like saroruha, like lotus flower. And on the lotus flower, the conch is appearing like a rajahamsa, a white swan. Very beautifully the Lord is holding the conch panchajanya. So yogi should meditate on all of these specifically. And here in the purport Srila Prabhupada mentions the yogi is advised to meditate upon each of the spokes. How many spokes are there? 1000 spokes are there. So sufficient time it takes. So this process of meditation given here is not something very easy or somehow, no. each and every spoke, 1000 spokes are there in the Sudarshana Chakra, the yogi should meditate upon all of them. So likewise, all the different features of the Lord, he should meditate upon. So this is the understanding. So let us take up these 4 points specifically and try to understand more. The first one, Bahumscha Mandara, Bahumscha Adhilokapalan. The 4 arms which represent the power of the demigods. So in the translation we see, Lord's 4 arms, which are the source of all the powers of the demigods who control the various functions of material nature. We see the functioning of material nature, and in the functioning of the material nature there are many devatas, demigods involved. Every day morning the sun rises in the east, it sets in the west. The moon rises and it sets. Air blows, timely there is rainfall. All of these things, systematically things are going on. So there is some organization, there is some system, there is some sequence of activities which is going on very systematically, very rigidly. Means we need to understand there is some management involved behind. And the universal management is taken care of by the devatas, various demigods. We come to know about their power not during normal times, when the devatas become angry. Especially we call, like say, Adidaivika klesha, Adhyatmika, Adibhautika, Adidaivika kleshas. The sufferings inflicted upon by the devatas, say in the form of few months back we had heard about devastating rainfall in one of our neighboring states. The water levels had risen to an unprecedented level high, maybe covering up to the first floor, the second floor the water had reached. In the city areas, practically the entire state was submerged in water. Everyone were, like say, panicky. We can't do anything. Then we can make out the power of Lord Indra. One order he gives for maybe Samvartaka or many of his assistant clouds, and they can come and devastate the entire places like anything. And likewise, we hear about regularly of say earthquake. One earthquake happens, the earth trembles, huge big buildings, skyscraper buildings or whatever it may be, everything is down to earth. You can understand the power of maybe the presiding deity of the earth. One big tsunami comes, maybe the height of a coconut tree, and washes away thousands of people. We can understand the power of Varuna, the ocean deity. And then we hear about, say, tornadoes, especially in the Western world, huge hurricanes, fast flowing, blowing winds. And because of that, like in videos you would have seen how big electric poles, along with those wires and all, one hurricane comes and all of these things are uprooted and just flying in the air. So we can understand the strength of maybe Vayu, the wind god. So all of these strengths, where do all of them get their strength from? The ultimate source is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Bahumscha Adilokapalan. Lord's four arms, which are the source of all the powers of the demigods who control the various functions of material nature. In the purport, another point Srila Prabhupada mentions. All departments of law and order emanate from the arms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The law and order of the universe is directed by different demigods, and it is here said to emanate from the Lord's arms. Throughout the world, there is this system of law and order. The ultimate maintainer of law and order is the Supreme Lord. And all the maybe so-called, like say, we see big devatas, we see maintaining law and order of universe, we see many politicians, bureaucrats administering the law and order of say one country or one state. We may see in in many institutions, organizations, there will be one management board which takes care of law and order within that, whatever threshold of that. In a small family, there is some law and order maintained, especially by the father or the elderly men in the house. In a small team, we find there's one team leader just to take care law and order. What is this law and order? Ultimately, it's like management means what? These things should be done, these things should not be done. Ultimately, it boils down there. These are the things which should be done, and these are the things which shouldn't be done. The person who enforces this, so they are the leaders of it may be an organization, it may be a family, it may be a country, it may be a big Brahmanda. These are the things should be done, these are the things which it shouldn't be done. There are people who enforce this. And the ultimate enforcement is by the Supreme Lord. Whatever His plan has to be executed. Something is going against His plan, His orders, it should be rectified. So there are many people involved in all of this universal management. So that's why in Bhagavad Gita we can see how Krishna says, Airavatam Gajendranam Naranam cha Naradhipam. In the 10th canto he says, among all the elephants, I am the Airavata. Among all the men, I am the Naradhipa, or the king, or the leader of the society. The king represents that power of the Supreme Lord to administer, to manage things, to maintain law and order. So the king represents the Supreme Lord. So all the devatas involved in the management of the universal affairs, they represent the power of the Supreme Lord to maintain the law and order. Because to maintain law and order means power is required. Kshatriya, if someone doesn't listen, force is required, enforcement is required, and ultimate enforcement authority lies in the hands of the Supreme Lord. So his hands, the Bahu, 4 hands, represent that. Then, next, very interesting, the arms of the Lord, a yogi should meditate upon. On the arms of the Lord, they are not empty. He is nicely decorated with various ornaments, maybe armlets and bangles and a lot of golden, many things he is wearing on his arms. A yogi should meditate upon that. And how are those jewelry, how are those ornaments which he is wearing? It is brilliantly shining. So we know, we have experience of any ornament, any metal, if it is kept for a long time, it fades away. It loses its luster. At least we have this experience. Maybe 2 days before any of our festival, all the copper pots are removed from the racks and kept near. If you walk through the kitchen passage, it will be kept there for washing. So it's all like not very attractive, all darkened. Just a day before the festival, all of those kalashas, everything will be washed nicely. So easily we can make out, yes, now it is washed. It will be shining on the day of the festival. And again after the festival, it will be kept back in the racks, and again it loses its luster. So again it has to be washed or polished, and all of these things needs to be done. Now, the ornaments on the hands of the Supreme Lord are appearing very brilliant, shining, as if recently polished or washed and kept whatever ready. How is this? At least I have this experience. In my house, like say once in a while, like say my mother used to give whatever the knives in the kitchen, many knives, some for fruits cutting, some for vegetables, and for different purposes, various kinds of knives we'll be having. And we used to take it to the market and get it sharpened. So there the person will be there with maybe one wheel, just like a cycle, and the pedaling will be there, and he presses that and the wheel starts rotating, and the knife is slightly made to touch the wheel, rotating wheel. It is very slightly, and we can see how all that layer, the outer layer, if it is rusted, everything is nicely chopped off, and the knife becomes very sharp. It shines also. If it all silver knives and all, if we take a stainless steel, it starts shining, it becomes very sharp. Likewise, now think the example given here, how the Supreme Lord, he is wearing ornaments on his hands, on his arms, and they are appearing very brilliant, very shining, as if recently it is polished. How can this happen? There is no reference like, okay, he removes that and gives it for polishing, someone will wash it and polishes and brings it back. That reference we don't find. How can it happen? So the way it is explained here, no. The Lord, in his incarnation as Kurma, as a tortoise, he lay, and all the ornaments, everything he has, and in that Kurma Avatara, the Mandara Parvata was kept on his back. The Mandara Parvata, which was used as a churning rod by the Devatas, holding Vasuki on the either side, and they had kept that Mandara Parvata on the back of Lord Kurma, who acted as the resting place for that pivot. And one side the Devatas, another side the Asuras, they were to and fro, back and forth. They were moving, holding the snake, and the Mandara Parvata was revolving clockwise and anti-clockwise as they moved to and fro, hither and thither. And because of this extensive churning which was taking place, the Mandara Parvata, whatever, forcefully it was rotating clockwise and anti-clockwise, and because of that movement of that Mandara Parvata, Mandara hill, the Lord who was below it as in the form of Kurma, as a tortoise, little thing, Kurma means like hands and legs, little protruding outside, and the ornaments little touching the Mandara Parvata which is moving, and by the touch, by the movement of that Mandara Parvata, all his whatever ornaments are being polished, are being burnished, and that's why it is appearing to be very brilliant. That is the explanation given. Again I repeat, read out from the purport. Mandara hill was taken as a churning rod. The Lord in his tortoise incarnation became the pivot for the churning rod, and thus his ornaments were polished by the turning Mandara hill. In other words, the ornaments on the arms of the Lord are as brilliant as lustrous as if they had been polished very recently. So this is how the Lord's ornaments are shining very brilliantly. Next we'll move on to the third one. Sanchintayed dashashataram asahya tejaha. So this is about the Sudarshana Chakra having 1000 spokes. So when we think of Sudarshana Chakra in Bhagavatam, very beautifully, immediately a few stories comes to our mind. One is how the Lord, using that Sudarshana Chakra, severed the head of Shishupala in the Rajasuya sacrifice. So in the Rajasuya sacrifice, there were all the kings assembled there, and Krishna was to be worshipped. The Agra Puja, the first worship, was supposed to be offered to Lord Krishna in front of all the kings assembled, in front of all the devatas who had come from various planets. So Maharaja Yudhishthira had arranged to offer that Agra Puja for Lord Krishna. But there was this one person, Shishupala, who stood up and objected that. And not just some simple objection, he started in a very heinous way, putting down and calling Krishna by ill names, and all of these things were happening. And Bhima and many others stood up to go and finish him off. But they were being restricted because the sacrificial arena, if at all there is bloodshed, then again, like, everything will be gone. Again, purificatory things has to be done, and it is like something in the sacrificial arena, the bloodshed should not happen. So they were all being restrained, but Krishna waited, and at the point came, he took the action. He released his Sudarshana Chakra, and there was head cut off without a single drop of blood coming out from the body of Shishupala to desecrate the sacrificial arena. Bloodless, some surgery, removal of the head happened during the Rajasuya sacrifice. So that was done by Sudarshana. And then we hear the story of Gajendra. So Gajendra, 1000 years he was struggling with that crocodile who had caught his leg, and with all his endeavor, finally he could make out, by my own strength, I cannot win over this crocodile now. He tried, but he couldn't. After all his energy was drained out, he became fatigued. He thought, now my time has come. At that moment, he remembers the Supreme Lord, remembers the prayers which he was offering during his previous life as Indradyumna, and he again offers those prayers to the Lord. The Lord appears there, sitting on the back of the Garuda, and releases his Sudarshana Chakra, which comes and chops off the crocodile's head and releases Gajendra from being attacked by that crocodile. So this is yet another story, and one more interesting, how Sudarshana saved Maharaja Ambarisha. Durvasa Muni had created one demon to kill Maharaja Ambarisha for his so-called offense. Durvasa Muni had took offense, though it was not a mistake on the part of Maharaja Ambarisha, but still Durvasa Muni had created a demon to kill him. So immediately, of course, Maharaja Ambarisha, a very humble, surrendered devotee, he did not take any measure to protect or safeguard himself. But Sudarshana Chakra came and immediately killed that demon, and he did not stop. Sudarshana, he chased behind Durvasa Muni, and Durvasa Muni went to different devatas. He went to Mount Mandara to hid somewhere. Everywhere Sudarshana did not leave his back at all. He went to Kailasa. He asked for Lord Shiva's help. He went to Brahmaloka and asked Lord Brahma's help. Nobody could save him. They told, no, you can go to Lord Vishnu in Vaikuntha. So he went there also. And even Lord Vishnu, he says, no. A lot of instructions he gives him. And he says, you go back and surrender or fall at the feet of Maharaja Ambarisha and beg for forgiveness. Only then the Sudarshana will leave you. Otherwise, even I can't save you from this Sudarshana. So likewise, Durvasa Muni comes and falls at the feet of Maharaja Ambarisha, and at that point of time, Maharaja Ambarisha, Durvasa Muni is a great Brahmana, great Rishi, sage, powerful sage, and he is falling at his feet, catching his feet and seeking protection from him. Ambarisha Maharaja, very humble devotee, felt a little ashamed, and he saw Sudarshana chasing him, and so he offers beautiful prayers to Sudarshana to be pacified and stop hurting or harming Durvasa Muni. Very beautiful prayers he offers. So I'll read the summary of that. So Srila Prabhupada has summarized in the chapter summary. We can find this beautiful prayers offered by Maharaja Ambarisha, which explains, gives the description of who really Sudarshana Chakra is. By the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, Durvasa Muni immediately went to Maharaja Ambarisha and fell at his lotus feet. Maharaja Ambarisha, being naturally very humble and meek, felt shy and ashamed because Durvasa Muni had fallen at his feet, and thus he began to offer prayers to the Sudarshana Chakra just to save Durvasa. What is this Sudarshana Chakra? The Sudarshana Chakra is the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by which he creates the entire material world. Sa Aikshata, Sa Asrijata. This is the Vedic version. The Sudarshana Chakra, which is the origin of creation and is most dear to the Lord, has thousands of spokes. So here we see Sudarshana Chakra is the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through which he creates the entire material existence. Then, the Sudarshana Chakra is the killer of the prowess of all other weapons. We find different weapons held by different devatas, just like the Vajrayudha Lord Indra has in his hands, the Pashupata Astra. Likewise, various devatas, they have got their own weapons. But the Sudarshana Chakra is the killer of the prowess of all other weapons. So nothing can stand in front of Sudarshana Chakra. Then, the Sudarshana Chakra is the killer of darkness and the manifester of the prowess of devotional service. So he is very powerful, the killer of all demons and whatever, and also he is the killer of darkness. How does he do this? He manifests the power or the prowess of devotional service, bhakti. By his presence, he manifests bhakti or devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Then, the Sudarshana Chakra is the means of establishing religious principles and it is the killer of all irreligious activities. Then, without his mercy, the universe cannot be maintained, and therefore the Sudarshana Chakra is employed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then finally, when Maharaja Ambarisha thus prayed to that Sudarshana Chakra, be merciful, the Sudarshana Chakra, being appeased, refrained from killing Durvasa Muni, who thus achieved the Sudarshana Chakra's mercy. So hearing the prayers of Maharaja Ambarisha, Sudarshana Chakra became appeased, satisfied, being pleased. He stopped killing Durvasa Muni. So this is about the Sudarshana Chakra, Sanchintaye Dashashataram Asahyate Jaha, and finally, Shankam Chatatkara Saroruha Rajahamsam. So that Shankha which the Supreme Lord holds in his hands, when Krishna was at the Gurukul of Sandipani Muni, he stayed there for 64 days and he learned many arts, and at the end of all of his learning, he before returning he wanted to offer some Guru Dakshina. So he asked his spiritual master Sandipani, what can I give? So Sandipani Muni told, he discussed with his wife, and they could make out Krishna and Balaram, they are not ordinary personalities, so something special we need to ask. They can do anything. So the wife of Sandipani Muni, she tells, can we ask for bringing our dead son back? Because many years back, Sandipani Muni's son, he had drowned in the Prabhasa Kshetra in the ocean, and he just drowned in the ocean and died. So they asked for getting back their dead son. So immediately Krishna took this order. Krishna and Balaram, they went to Prabhasa Kshetra and they ordered the presiding deity of the ocean to return whatever his spiritual master's son. So immediately the deity in the ocean, he came outside and he says, no, I did not cause him to drown. It was actually one demon by name Panchajana who is there in the depth of the ocean. He has eaten him away. Maybe now he may be lying in the belly of that Panchajana who is lying in the, who assumes the form of a conch shell and there in the depths of the ocean. So immediately Krishna dives into the ocean and he goes there and kills the demon Panchajana and searches there. Of course, there he did not find his spiritual master's son there. Later he went to Yamaloka and all that story continues, and that's how he brought back the Panchajanya, the conch shell from the depths of the ocean from Prabhasa Kshetra. And it is through this conch shell, we remember in the case of Dhruva Maharaja, after Dhruva performing the austerities, the Lord appeared, and Dhruva, when he saw the Supreme Lord, he was meditating within the heart by remembering the instructions given by his spiritual master Narada Muni. And the same form, at one point of time, the form within the heart, he was unable to see. And he became bewildered and opened his eyes, and that very form, that very same Supreme Lord, he is standing in front of him. He became ecstatic. He couldn't speak anything, just tears were rolling down his eyes, and he offered his obeisances. Then the Lord made him stand up and touched him with his conch shell. And immediately Dhruva became a self-realized personality and started offering beautiful prayers to the Supreme Lord. So all of these things we can see. So this is how the yogi should meditate upon the arms of the Lord, the burnished or the polished ornaments on the hands of the Supreme Lord, and then the Sudarshana Chakra having 1,000 spokes, and the nice wonderful Panchajanya conch shell, which just appears like a Rajahamsa swan on the lotus-like hand of the Supreme Lord. We'll end with this. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.